witches. I wanted to make a little video talking about my experience right now with the South Node in Leo, just newly in Leo, having so many activations with the sun being in Leo right now. I am recording this from August of 2026 if you're watching this in the future. And if you are having an eclipse portal ongoing in your fourth house, the South Node in your fourth house, you may want to listen to this because it's how I'm experiencing it. I'm a Taurus rising. Leo is in my fourth house, and as I said, we just started like the South Node eclipse portal being in Leo for like the next 18 months. This is the beginning. And so it seems to be my story. You know, Leo is all about self-expression. And for me, you know, that's in my fourth house. And I think during this time, you know, with this energy signature, I am, you know, analyzing how I'm an only child to two parents who divorced, but I can remember from a very young age, for example, so my two most influential, well, I can't really say that, all four of the matriarchs in my family, you know, had a big hand in my raising. You know, my mom, my dad's mom, my mom's mom, and my mom's grandma all spent a lot of time with me growing up. And, you know, it's starting to become clear to me how their expectations and their wishes for me, like how they wanted me to be, really shaped who I expressed myself to be during the first part of my life. Right now I'm 42, and I remember this one exchange like really vividly. My dad's mom she's gone now, but when she was here, she was an absolute angel on earth to me. I even called her Grandma Angel because her energy was like of an angel. She just was so kind to me and so loving. So please take this as an example. Like, just because people kind of did something that may have had an effect on you, that down the road you're like, yeah, that's not what I'm going for, and that's not probably the healthiest way to be. You know, just because you can trace something like that back to something they did does not mean they're an awful person, or that was their overall like legacy to your life, because that's completely not the case when it comes to this woman. My only daughter is named after her, and I just, no, I love her so much. But anyway, the exchange that I was going to talk about was she loved Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals, and so did I. So whenever I was at her house, you know, we would inevitably watch one. And we happened to be watching Oklahoma, and I loved Ado Annie. I loved her, you know, her zest and her spunk and her red lipstick and just her funny songs, you know. And I found her so much preferable than to Lori, who just seemed so like wistful and powerless and cantankerous, and you know, and that was kind of, I guess, the image of femininity that we were supposed to be like, oh, that's virtuous and that's good and that's what we need. And I was missing that as a little girl, and I was like, Ado Annie seems like she's having way more fun. Anyway, I happened to say while we were watching, I love Ado Annie. Or I may have said like, I'm like Ado Annie or something like that. And my grandmother said, no, you're a Lori. You know, and I was like, I remember even at a really young age being like, oh, so, oh, like, that's the archetype that I need to be? Oh. You know, when you're little, you don't even know how to put a lot of thought into it. It's just like it made an imprint, and there it is. Well, fast forward the rest of my life, like, you know, my parents expected me to make pretty much perfect grades, do all the sports, all the clubs, you know, like, and most of all, be the good girl. Be the sweet girl, be the good girl, be the kind girl, be the smart girl, be the, you know, just the epitome of this standard of womanhood that, as I have reached an older age, is absolutely exhausting and pointless to me, because what ended up and happened was, while I was performing, you know, the good girl, I thought, you know, I should get, then I got in church, and, you know, then their whole standards of good girl, you know, I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is next level, this is the next level I need to do of good girl, and, you know, on it goes. And I got married, I had 5 kids, I was Catholic, I thought being a good girl meant, like, you can't have birth control, you know, you sacrifice your life for, you know, your loved ones, and, you know, on. And I'm just saying, you know, performing the good girl, I'm not saying that it wasn't ever authentic, because there are ways that I was authentic, you know, during that time. But I remember when I was getting a divorce, I had found out that my ex-husband had said, you know, she was the perfect wife, you know, up until then, when I wanted a divorce. Because, I was, you know, like, my entire life was completely, you know, wrapped up in my husband and my kids and my family, and that's fine. I'm not saying that's not fine, but there was no room for self-care, self-expression, anything like that. It was all sucked out of me, and it wasn't a two-way street. You know, it was me giving away all of that, my personhood, everything, and it was a performance. I didn't even have the time to get to know who I really was. So, anyway, with the South Node in Leo being in my 4th house of roots and ancestry and stuff like that, I'm really debunking, like, performing the good girl, you know, and trying to figure out who I really am. You know, I remember getting in trouble for talking too much, for being too loud, for being too giddy. Like, I would just laugh and sing and talk back and be rude and smart alecky and say too many things that were too true that nobody wanted to deal with. And, you know, I'm not saying I was always right. Sometimes I was a brat and a turd too. But what I'm interested in learning is, who am I really? And who have I been performing in my life for that familial approval or whatnot? So I hope this helps you if the South Node is transiting your 4th house. So, of course, that's going to look different depending on what sign it's in. Right now it's in Leo. But anyway, I just love hearing how, like, astrology energy is hitting, you know, is manifesting for people, how they're feeling it. I think that's even more important than the transits and the what might be happen, what might happen, is like, what are you actually dealing with? What is actually going on? And then using that as a point of reference to see, like, how is that similar to what I'm going through, to see if there's any juice in that. I hope you have an amazing day, and